Welcome to the Rethink Leadership Podcast, available on all platforms including YouTube if you prefer to watch. My name is Jeremy Blain, CEO of Performance Works International, Executive Director of the Transformational Leadership Acceleration Institute, and Managing Partner of Diversity Talent. My aim is to bring insights from leaders, experts, and highly talented professionals from around the world. Insights, stories, and advice from the front lines of modern leadership to engage, inspire, and mobilise progress back in the workplace. Every episode is a learning opportunity for us all. The Rethink Leadership Podcast also supports charities around the world. Each episode is in aid of a cause chosen by my guests, and to date I'm proud to say we've supported over 60 global and local great causes. My guest today for the Rethink Leadership Podcast, Matt Episcopo. Matt is a retired captain of the Madison County Sheriff's Office in New York State and now a speaker, author and trainer. Matt knows that the real way for leaders to become effective is to build credibility, trust and relationships. His efforts have helped companies around the world improve all aspects of their leadership. He is widely recognised as an energizing and engaging presenter. He's a featured TEDx speaker and the author of the book How to Gain the Upper Hand, Power Tactics That Get Leaders Results. A Medal of Honor recipient with more than 21 years of law enforcement experience, Matt bridges the gap between the structure of the police force and what can be learned in the corporate world around engaging and mobilising others to work effectively with virtually anyone. We talk about the differences between working in law enforcement and the corporate world, what can be learned from that, how Matt made the transition himself and more. We then go deeper into how Matt works with leaders everywhere to supercharge their relationships, communication, collaboration and results through his powerful approach. Tune in to find out more about what I mean by that. Matt, thank you so much for joining me. Please introduce yourself, a potted history of your career inside and outside of law enforcement, and tell us something about yourself that not many people will know.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having me here today. I really do appreciate it. Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Episcopo. I currently live in Albany, New York, and I served 21 years in law enforcement in the Madison County Sheriff's Office. That's in central New York. During my time at the Madison County Sheriff's Office, I kind of came up through the investigative side. So my specialty was interview and interrogation and also death investigations. I've got, a lot of things under my belt that I've done during my career. Some of the highlights, I served on a team called P.O.W.E.R. P.O.W.E.R was a federal disaster team. When there was mass fatality somewhere, the team would go in and our job was to recover, identify, and return people to where they belonged. I served on a technology working group federally, which is biometrics, which was kind of interesting to see how that developed. And since my retirement, I have a business where I travel around the world internationally, pre-COVID, post-COVID. I kind of have not been abroad yet, but I teach leadership skills and communication strategies. And then on the other side of my business, I still travel around the country teaching military and law enforcement professionals interview skills and techniques.
That is really impressive, I have to say. And give us a clue about something that not many people know about you as well.
This will be fun. This will be fun. So there's a few things that I enjoy in my downtime, and it's to keep my brain busy. One is during COVID, I taught myself how to play guitar. So I really enjoy that. I play every day. I'm not any good, but I enjoy playing. And then I also enjoy going out metal detecting. And that keeps my brain active like an investigator would, because when I'm looking for things, I research and I kind of treat it like a crime scene, if you will. So I do the research, and then when I find things, I photograph them, measure them, document them. And then the most interesting thing is I really enjoy magic. I started doing magic when I turned 21 years old. And that's when I started my law enforcement career. And that became my balance in life, because of the stuff that we see is usually tragic and horrific. I needed to see people smile. I needed to see the good side of people. And so I learned to do magic. And as a matter of fact, Wednesday, so coming up here, I'm going to be going to a thing that's called the 4F's Magic Convention. It's the first world's magic convention. They're celebrating 50 years this year, and it's literally people from around the world. So some of my friends from the UK will be there. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
That is just amazing. Come on, that's absolutely fantastic. And I totally get that. Almost that detoxification of what you're seeing in the workplace and seeing those smiles again. And my obvious question coming out of that, as a detectorist, then Matt, what's the best thing that you found that you're most proud of?
So it's interesting here in the Albany, New York area. There's a lot of history, and I tend to focus on the Revolutionary War. So I live very close to where Saratoga was, which is argued to be one of the turning points of the Revolutionary War. So I have obtained permission to be on some of the homeowners' lands that were around that area, and I've found cannonballs, military buttons, musket balls, and for me, I say I treat it like a crime scene. So there's one area where I'm able to go in and photograph and pinpoint everything, and I'm able to take a modern day map and an old map and layer them together, and I can show the pins and what I found. And I actually have reconstructed a skirmish between the British and the Americans. And how I was able to do that is the British musket balls are a little bit bigger than the Americans, so you can see the exchange of fire. So that's kind of fun.
And that really is what you said before. That really goes back to your law enforcement days and that forensic analysis
Right.
of the scene. Absolutely fantastic. Wow, gosh. And I didn't know that the British musket balls were slightly bigger. Do you, a side question, do you know the British TV show The Detectorists?
I don't, but I'll just show you. There is a British musket ball for you. It's here on my desk.
Oh, there it
It
is too.
measures
Wow.
0.69 millimeters. So
Crikey.
there it is. This is actually one from the Battle of Saratoga. So there you have it for all your friends in the UK. That is a British musket ball fired during battle.
Well, for those of you on YouTube, you'll be able to see that. For those of you that aren't, get on the YouTube version and you'll see Matt and his musket ball. Absolutely fantastic. And yes, and I can well recommend The Detectorist, the BBC TV
I will
show.
look it
It's
up.
a fun show. Yeah, do so. It's a lovely little show, and I'm sure you'll appreciate it a lot. So, as much as I would love to discuss this more all day, let's go into almost like your dual careers, the law enforcement, then what's happened next outside of law enforcement. So, when you moved from law enforcement into the corporate world, what were the main differences in leadership approaches and styles that you came across, Matt?
So I can only speak to my experience coming from law enforcement and teaching the corporate world, because what they really like is our structure and our discipline. Um, I have never worked in the corporate world. When I turned 21, I got into law enforcement. So I grew up in law enforcement my entire life and career. So I don't know what it's like. I can only tell you what it's like to collaborate with them. And they really like the structure and the discipline and the systematize, how we systematize things that we do. Because when you have a system, then you can duplicate and replicate that success.
Yes, I can understand that. And it leads me to an obvious follow up to that, then, Matt, which is so if you play that out a little bit from your observations and now you're working in across both worlds, actually, what
Yes.
can leaders in the corporate world learn from law enforcement? And I'm guessing there's a vice versa to that.
Very much so, there is. So, coming from an interview and interrogation background, it's all about building rapport and relationships. That's really what it's about. So, what I teach and practice in my own business is building relationships with people, because I find that when someone meets another person, they're looking for trust and credibility. Those are the two things you need to write down and etch into your brain, is trust and credibility. Because if we know that's what they're looking for, then we can deconstruct that and say, how do I deliver that to them? And there's a lot of different ways of delivering trust and credibility. But if you don't have trust and credibility, you're not going to move someone to a yes.
So create your foundation of structure and discipline, invest in the relationships and create that rapport to then be credible to everybody else, but also have that strong trust, that strong mutual trust, which is absolutely critical, right? If you're going to be then communicating, collaborating, co-working, whatever it is. And I guess that's why there is also has to have been, as in business, a strong evolution of leadership techniques in law enforcement, particularly around those elements of communication and collaboration. So why do you think that was needed if there has been such a structure and such a discipline in law enforcement?
It's always the
And
first thing to break down. Okay, so whenever I take a look at what goes down, I like to debrief. That is something that I always do. Is after I have an interaction with anyone, even after this, I'll debrief it and say, okay, what did we do? What went right? What went wrong? How do I improve? Bullet points moving forward. So I deconstruct and evaluate everything I do. And when I deconstruct things that went wrong, many times, if not most of the time, it's a communication error of some form.
yes, I can understand that too. And we know that poor communication can lead to misunderstanding. And that's the curse of email, isn't it, as well, is that not
Yeah,
just
and
your
so
verbal.
to capitalize on that, I say this many times when I'm speaking with people. I say, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody and you ask them to do something, and in your mind it was crystal clear, there was absolutely no way they could mess it up, and somehow they don't get it right from your perspective? I mean, and everyone raises it. It happens all the time. It's because we don't usually do what I would refer to as a feedback loop, where you either say to someone, okay, Jeremy, here's what I would like you to do. Will you please tell me what you understand the instructions are, right? That kind of thing. Or, so Jeremy, if I heard you right, what you're saying is, right, it's to communicate and further understand. And that's where it breaks down, because people hear, we see them nodding their head like they got it, then they go to do and execute, and it's not what you meant. So it's important to clarify.
Yes, I've definitely fallen into that trap
Me
many
too.
times in my careers, and I'm still learning, and still doing it, particularly in these fast-paced times. You know, banging off a few emails or having a few phone calls, and the amount of rework that can create sometimes is horrific.
And I'm also
Uh,
finding, to finish off that, that why is it more important today is when I'm talking to leaders today that are hiring people and developing their teams and getting people ready to take over for that leadership role. This is the biggest problem here, is everyone's doing this instead of this. And so they're telling me that today people are just having a hard time having a face-to-face conversation with someone with good eye contact and smile, and just being able to hold a conversation for any length of time, because they're so distracting. Even if you're starting a conversation, they feel the need to check this phone. It just buzzed. What is that? It's so difficult. And think back 10 years ago, we'd never even had this as an issue, a problem. It wasn't on the table so much. I mean, cell phones existed, but we weren't so dependent on the apps that we use to manage our businesses and our lives and the way that we communicate. So it's really changed things a lot.
it really has, and there's now that neuroscientific proof of it, how it reshapes the brain, how you have these dopamine hits of 10 seconds, the TikToks or the videos, those of us certainly with teenagers certainly know that, but the damage that can do to attention spans, etc. And it's a key question for business as well. And you are at the heart of this in how you coach, how you consult, how you work with and facilitate leadership teams, and in fact, many teams beyond just the leadership group around this, using a process that you've created yourself around this. Could you explain what that is in a little bit more, and why it's so important?
Sure. So in government and here in the States, we love acronyms, right? We love a word that each letter means something. So I came up with the word power because I thought that was a good, powerful word, number one. And that's what we can break it down into 5 steps. It's a communication process. When I started taking a look at what it was that I did and how I was having the success that I had, and I deconstructed it. So I'll just run through each of the letters quickly, and if you want me to elaborate, I'm more than happy to. So the P is preparation. Really, you can't go into things. I know we cannot always have the luxury of preparing, But when we can, we really have to make that part of our plan to prepare before we go in. In other words, don't just wing it. You have to have a solid plan, and you have to prepare for that. The O is your observations. You're going to be reading people's body language, and they are reading yours, whether you know it or not, because it's arguable that 90 something percent, 92%, but over 90% of human communication is nonverbal communication. It's the way we say things. It's our facial expressions. It's our tone of voice. It's our body language. It's the clothes we wear. It's all these signals that we give off on how we communicate. So it's been said that 7% is the spoken word, but that's what we all focus on. Now, the words are very important, but if it's such a small sliver, we really want to observe and take in all that information so we can have better quality communication. The W is win them over. That is rapport building right there. So you haven't even got to the heart of things yet, because if you haven't had the preparation and making your observations and focusing on building rapport, and building rapport is something we have to do and recognize, because you don't just do it once, it's forever. Because if we're going to have relationships, business relationships, we want long-term business relationships with people, you have to maintain rapport once you build it. Then the E is the emotional connection. Human beings are emotionally based people. We're emotionally based creatures. The most powerful tool that we have is telling stories and communicating with people. And when you can connect with someone emotionally, people will make a decision based on emotion first and back it up with logic. So we have to connect with people emotionally. And then the R is to retain people. You want to do either business with them again, or maintain that relationship. And so that's really kind of an easy to remember package that I put it into.
It's so powerful too, Matt. And it strikes me that the impact of this can be across many things, whether you're collaborating, communicating, coaching, team working, whatever it is. And maybe just an aside question, but in what sort of capability areas like that has your power process been shown to have the greatest benefits when we consider business leaders, for example?
Gosh, I get hired all the time to do keynotes, and this is what I focus on. And usually with the limited time that I have with people, I focus on the first three, the P, the O, and the W, so the POW, right? I focus on those because in my observation, when I watch people either in sales, for example, or in leadership roles, they start at step number 4. And that's usually when you're trying to move someone to a yes, or get someone to do what you would like them to do, or be persuasive, or negotiate, or those things. That's usually step 4. And I find that many people just go in and start there. They haven't taken the time to prepare. They haven't taken the time to make their observations. And they certainly haven't taken the time to build rapport with people. And so if you haven't done that, then they don't know, like, and trust you. You haven't built that trust and credibility. And they have the walls up and they're resistant to say yes, or you as a leader, because they don't trust you yet. So you have to take that time. So I really focus on those first 3 steps, because once you have that in place, when you get to step number 4, it's so much easier. It's, instead of taking a giant leap of faith, it's like a step forward. It's so much better.
Yeah, and I'd like to get into this a little bit deeper, because from a leadership perspective, these are fantastic skill sets as much as a process to go through in terms of how they might present themselves, uh, the link to measurable results through the business and others as much as themselves. So, how do those leaders tuning into this, Matt, embrace the power, let's say, and get started on the journey if they're going to tackle each step of your process?
Sure. Would you like me to maybe give a tip on each one? Because there's a lot of tips for each of those bullet points, if you will. But to give value to the people listening or watching this, I can certainly give a tip, and that would maybe create a situation where they want a little more and can learn more. But so, for example, mentally rehearsing. I'm sure this is something you're very familiar with, but I teach the leaders that everything starts in your mind. Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. It's been said a million times. That's not original to me, but it really struck me. If you don't think you can, you're right. If you think you can, you can. So when I take a look at my career, I loved it when people told me no, because I felt like I then had something to work with. All right. I have a goal. I have an objective. This is great. I didn't let it take me down and say, oh, I can't do it. Most of the things, if you take a look at my resume, were firsts. because I saw a need. And so you have that mindset. And so maybe just a very simple technique that they can do. And I'll do this with you because I think it will be fun. And I would invite the people listening to actually do it, because you're going to get value if you do it. It's one thing to listen to it and be entertained, but if you actually do it, it's going to work for you. And it's a very simple technique. So it's called, I want you to repeat after me. All right. Well, let's just have some fun. Say, I'm cool.
I'm cool.
I'm calm.
I'm calm.
I'm the best.
I'm the best.
It's easy. But now what I want you to do is I want you to say it. Just look right at the camera and say it with a little attitude and swagger, like, I'm cool. I'm calm. I'm the best. Go ahead and do that.
I'm cool. I'm calm. I'm the best.
Yes. Now, this time, I don't want you to say it out loud. I just want you to think it, but with that attitude and swagger, look at the camera and just think it. Go for it. Yes. Now, I'm going to ask you something right now. Do you feel, honestly, do you feel your energy changing?
I do, and that's caused by a few things. A, engaging with someone else on it. It tickles my humor button, which I think is engaging and exciting in itself. And I'm engaged in the conversation. And for those of you that are just tuning in on Spotify or Apple, I was actually just doing that to the camera then. And
Absolutely. It
it's
looks
true.
great.
It's energizing.
It is. So just to share a very quick story with you, I was working with a young lady that had to talk and something like this. And she said, I get so nervous, I start to stutter and everything falls apart. And I taught her this technique and she killed it. I could tell. And I said, what happened? She said, I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm beautiful. She changed the words to suit herself. So you can choose whatever words you want that just give you that little boost of energy. And that just gives you that little shot of confidence that you need. Because think about this, when you're looking at someone that's a leader, you want a confident leader. You don't want Eeyore as your leader. Oh, I guess we got to do this, right? It's that confident thing. It's how you carry yourself. And it all starts in your mind, because what you think on the inside shows on the outside. So it's very important just to give yourself that little shot of confidence.
Yeah, I really enjoyed going through that, and so much so that I would really like you to take us through, the other steps as well, and give us one nugget from each of those, so that we can
Yeah.
take something from each, because it is so powerful. And like many things, these sort of simple processes done well, it's all you need, really.
You're 100% right, because these things are not original to me. I just put them into a system that works. And when people say, Matt, these are simple, it's absolutely. They're simple and they work and they're proven to work. And it's something I do every day in my business and when I teach and train other leaders. So again, another technique is when you're doing your observation, eye contact and a smile is so important. So a tip is, if you notice right now, you probably feel as though I'm looking at you because I'm literally looking at the camera versus like this. I'm looking at you on the screen now. When we're on the screen, even though we accept this, it's much more powerful to feel the eye contact and the smile, and that's universal. So just having good eye contact, good smile, and a good open posture, that's really what we want. So here's another interesting thing, is a lot of people always take when you cross your arms as a negative, and they say this is a resistant body language. So I'd like to dispel a myth with that. Is sometimes it could be, it could be, but it doesn't mean that it always is. It could be someone's cold. That's all. It could be that they're just giving themselves like a little self-soothing hug, if you will, without realizing. There's a lot of things that happen without us thinking about it. So why I want to tell you this is because if you're moving someone to a yes and their arms are crossed, they're not going to say yes in a crossed position. So we have to uncross them. And a simple technique that you can do is simply hand them a bottle of water. As soon as you hand someone a bottle of water, they uncross and they take the water. You have one yourself. Now you're mirroring, and people like themselves. You can also do that by just saying, you know what, I got to stretch my legs, or I have to take a bathroom break or whatever it is. And movement, as soon as they move, right? And it's just that little bit of a break. Now, when you sit back down, they're uncrossed and more open. So it's just a signal to recognize if you're moving to that yes, and you see this, we want to do something to uncross them. And it could be that you just got to move back a little bit, back to the rapport building stage. and they'll naturally uncross. But it's just a signal to look for. Any questions on that before I go to W?
No, it makes sense because it links very closely to what you just started with me, with that little exercise to get the energy there, but also engaging them to unlock body language as well as engage in positive body language is something that I think is really neat, Matt.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so the W is win them over. And this is building rapport. I'll teach you a really simple technique to build rapport with anybody. I've done this years and years. So I'll do this again with you because you're so gracious to help me out. So Jeremy, if you could do anything you wanted to do today, you didn't have any obligations, you didn't have any family obligations or work obligations, you could do what you wanted to do, what would you choose to do today?
I'd go up a mountain.
Say one more time.
I'd go up a mountain, walk up a hill.
Oh, you go hiking?
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Well, that's where I'm at my happiest. It's been a passion since I was a kid. And I just love the feeling of the ground underneath the feet. That real connection with the ancient earth of a mountain is like nothing else.
Fantastic. When you come over to New York to visit, we have the beautiful Adirondack Mountains and the Catskill Mountains, and just to the east of me is the Green Mountains and the Berkshire Mountains. We have all sorts, so I'd be happy to show you around. And I'm going to pause right there. So that's a technique that I could go forever, because there's what I'm going to call TED questions, TED. The T means tell me, and that's what I use with you. And I kind of hang out there 90% of the times. That's my favorite one, is just getting people to talk. The more they're talking, the more you're doing something right. That's the whole thing. We just have to be good listeners and get people talking, because let's face it, when you get someone talking about things they like, you're putting them in their happy place. There's a few reasons why I do that, because when you put someone in their happy place and look at you, you're smiling, you're beaming, you were just thinking about going up a mountain, which you love. Now, as we move forward, I have a baseline to compare and contrast against. I can tell if you're moving away from your happy place. And if you are, I'm going to go back to building a rapport, because I want to keep you happy, right? That's the whole thing. I've learned something about you now that I know you like. So if I was to follow up with a thank you card or a thank you letter, it might have a mountain theme to it. That kind of thing. It's that personal connection that we're going to. So there's so many good reasons for doing that. And it's just a simple technique. If you could do anything you wanted to do, no family obligations, no work obligations, what would you choose to do? And you can, so here's the important part. If they say, I would like to hike up a mountain, and you like to do that as well, and that's truthful, you say, wow, me too, tell me about it, and you start exchanging stories. If not, you give them the upper hand and you say, you know what, I don't know a lot about hiking, Jeremy, tell me about that. And you just keep prompting them to go. So never BS anybody during rapport building. If you know about it, go for it. If you don't, say, tell me about it, and just keep prompting them to talk. That's the best thing. So that's winning someone over. Now, again, imagine if you have this shot of confidence. I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm the best. You're watching them a little bit and you're getting them talking. Now you're really primed to make that emotional connection. And that's what comes next.
Just going back one step,
Yeah.
Matt, you talked about tell me as far as TED. What's the E and the D?
Thank you. So tell me, explain to me, describe to me. So TED, yeah, absolutely. Great question. I skipped right over it. So tell me, explain, and describe. So those are open, non-leading questions, and it gets people to talk. They can't just say yes or no to those. And while I'm listening to you, which is going to bring me right in naturally to that W, when we're talking with people, we want to make them, and here's the operative word, feel listened to. That's the whole thing. If you are communicating with someone and they actually feel as if you've listened to them with intent and you understand what's going on, then you have connected with them. And that's the sign. Not listening so that you can interrupt, not listening so you can say what you want to say. People can tell when you're not tuned in. So if you're leaning forward, looking them in the eye, prompting them, getting them to talk, it's been shown that men will interrupt every 7.5 seconds. And I'm guilty of that as well. I really am. So I have to practice and discipline really not to interrupt, because I get excited and I can't wait to share my experiences and I can't wait to ask them that. Well, what's the sense of asking someone a question and talking over the top of them or stopping them? So keeping someone going, and you'll find initially people will answer short because they're used to getting cut off. And the more you get them to talk, wow, next thing you know, you have a conversation, and you haven't really done any talking. They go, that guy's great. And you haven't done anything but listen. But that's one of the first times they feel listened to. It's a powerful, impactful thing for them to experience. And they're really going to start looking to you as a leader at that point. It really makes a big difference.
Yeah, and that emotional connection, well, that blend between the W and the E, that winning them over, and that emotional connection, that empathy, the thread of empathy that goes
Absolutely.
through, that comes across loud and clear. So when you've built that, tell me about the R.
Yeah, great. So the R is retaining people, right? I always say when you get them in your house, you want to keep them in your house. And how do you do that? That's following up with them. That's checking in and continuing to build rapport with them. Um, that is debriefing. So I'll tell you a technique that I like to use, and this is built on Kolb's experiential learning cycle. It's called what, so what, now what? And that's how I debrief things. I literally take a look at something. I say, okay, what is it? It's as if a camera, a video camera saw it. What did the camera see? This is what happened. And now you say, so what? What are the takeaway points from that? What did we learn? What can we do to move forward with this? And the now what are your action points? Moving forward, here's what I'm going to do. More of this that's good, correct what's bad. And that's just a really simple way to debrief conversations or your teams. You can do this with a team. You can go around the room. You can say, okay, what did we learn today? Tell me. See, I'm using the tell me. I love that. Tell me gets people talking. Tell me some bullet points that we can write down to move forward. And now give me a time that we can expect this to be done that's reasonable. So now you have set miniature goals and you can keep the needle moving forward.
You are incredibly easy to listen to, I have to say, Matt. And maybe we should be continuing this up the Catskills sometime when I come over to New York and go for a hike and chat more. But there's
Love it.
so much within this in itself, and starting with mindset, coming through building that confidence, engagement, the importance of the body language. And what I really like are the examples that you've given throughout this, because it really connects to our reality as well. And there's so much more I know within those, and you've written those down in a book. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I wrote a book that's called How to Gain the Upper Hand, Power Tactics that Get Leaders Results, and see Power, P.O.W.E.R, because it goes through many of the bullet points in there. And it will also give you some exercises that you can do, because I'm all about experiential learning. The more that you do, so it's been said that knowledge is power. I say knowledge plus action equals power. You can learn all you want to learn and take it all in, but if you don't act on what you've learned and put it into play, then it doesn't really give you results that you're looking for. And I'm a very results driven person. And so, again, it's one of those things that I put it into easy to understand, break down everything that's going on there. I like to show the research behind what I say, because I like to use evidence-based practices. So yeah, I have a book. It's fun.
Right. And where can people get hold of your book, Matt? I'm sure there's lots of people listening who are interested to find out more.
Sure, they can contact me directly on mattepiscopo.com. That's my website. And if you go to the top, it'll have Matt's book on there. You can go there, and it's on Amazon as well. If you type in Amazon, wherever you happen to live, it's on Amazon. And I'm happy to help people. If they have questions, just shoot me an email or whatever. I'll do my best to help, as I sincerely want to see people moving forward. Because I think it was Tom Peters, one of the quotes that he had that I really like is he said that leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. I want people to do better than I've done. That's my whole thing. If someone can tell me, I learned this little nugget from you and here's the success I've had, that's my payday. As a leader, I want you to exceed what I've done, be better. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, those watching on YouTube will see me beaming away because I've been totally engaged in this conversation. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me and sharing with everybody your journey yourself, but then how you're giving back both to the forces, across all forces, but also into business. And I would urge everybody listening in to do reach out to Matt, connect. But Matt Episcopo, thank you very much for joining me.
It's my honor, and let's continue this, and I look forward to seeing you in person someday soon. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. Please like, comment and support us on your favourite platform, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.